And Canada can and should do more to help Ukraine. That's according to retired Chief of the Defense Staff Rick Hillier. He wrote a piece in the National Post this weekend saying sanctions that will impact weeks or months down the road will not help them now. They will not stop the tanks, the cruise missiles, the thousands of artillery rounds battering everything. And he's calling on Canada to send a brigade to support NATO's eastern flank in Poland, buy weapons, fight for a no-fly zone, continue sanctions, do more to help Ukrainian refugees, and rebuild the Canadian armed forces. Is Canada pulling its weight in the fight to support Ukraine? Let's take a look at what Canada has done so far in addition to lethal weapons. Canada has committed over $180 million in humanitarian assistance, has 3,400 troops on high readiness alert, trained over 33,000 Ukrainian soldiers since 2015, and sanctioned over 1,000 Russian individuals and entities. And there are troops on the ground in Europe. Approximately 540 CAF members are on the ground in Latvia and 240 on European waters aboard the HMCS Montreal. And the government says more troops are coming. The HMCS Halifax departed this weekend with 250 people on board, and 150 more soldiers are set for Latvia. So what more should Canada do? Let's ask the MPs. Rob Oliphant is the Foreign Affairs Parliamentary Secretary, Michael Chong is the Conservative Foreign Affairs Critic, and Heather McPherson is the NDP Foreign Affairs Critic. Thank you to the three of you. Thanks for being with us today, and welcome to Power Play. You know, Mr. Oliphant, let me start with you. What do you think about what General Hillier is saying, and should Canada really do much, much more?
I just want to begin with commenting on your last guest, and I think Canadians right now are both horrified at what Ukrainians are going through on the ground, the constant barrage of a horrendous attack from Russia, and at the same time inspired by the courage and the persistence and the tenacity of the Ukrainian people. So that's leading us to do two things. One is to do the largest sanction of measures ever that we've taken, over 500 new sanctions against individuals and entities. That brings to 1,000 of those sanctions that are having an effect. I would say, with all due respect to General Hillier, that those are not long-term. We are seeing the fall of the ruble, 30%, interest rates at 20% in Russia. We're seeing that, you know, they're struggling to get their stock markets open. The bonds are down. So those
you are quite right. You are quite right. It is doing that, but sanctions don't win wars. And the shelling of cities and civilians continues. So I think what the general is saying is that, yes, the sanctions should continue, but they're not stopping President Putin.
Not stopping yet, but we are bringing Russia to its knees economically, and the Russian people, the oligarchs, are feeling it strongly. Mr. Putin himself is feeling it strongly. Putin regime will be brought to its knees. At the same time, as you just enumerated, we have put in $1 billion worth of assistance to Ukraine, lethal and non-lethal weapons, and that's $100 million. We've trained soldiers. We have continued to
We've
provide
said that, Mr. Oliphant.
Oh, we're doing it. So we're doing that. We are providing them with the tools. We've trained their soldiers, and at the same time, we're dropping Russia to its knees. And we're into 25, 26 days of this war, and we will continue to do everything we can to support Ukraine in this fight of their life.
Okay, Michael Chong, I'd like you to answer that. Is Canada doing everything it can, and can it do more?
No, it's not doing everything it can. Canada can do a lot more. What we're looking for from the Prime Minister this week at the NATO summit, as well as in the upcoming federal budget, is a commitment to meet Canada's longstanding NATO defense commitment, which is to spend 2% of our GDP on national defense. Now, it's clear that no government in Canada over recent decades has met that commitment, but that was understandable. That decrease in defense spending after the fall of the Berlin Wall was understandable as a result of the dissolution of the Soviet Union. In fact, Margaret Thatcher and George H.W. Bush called it the peace dividend, in referring to a decrease in defense spending that took place amongst NATO allies after the fall of the Berlin Wall. But things have changed. Clearly, we face a real threat in the rise of autocrats like Putin and President Xi in the People's Republic of China that we no longer can ignore. And Ukraine is bearing the brunt of this. Canada needs to increase defense spending. We need to meet our 2% commitment. And we're looking for the Prime Minister to deliver on that at the emergency NATO summit this week and in the upcoming federal budget. It is an imperative that we do it not just for the security of Europe and the security of Ukraine, but also for our own security here at home.
And Heather McPherson, I mean, we know what's happening in Mariupol. These people are basically trapped in their own city without food, without water, without electricity. You know, people calling the mayor and saying, I have my child in my arms and my child is dying of hunger. What can I do? We know all these stories. Do you agree with General Hillier? Is it time now for Canada to step up to the plate, to do the 2% of GDP? What do you think Canada concretely can do more now?
You know, first of all, I want to say that absolutely, when we see what's happening in Ukraine right now, when we see, you know, theaters that have the word children written on top of it being bombed, you know, this is horrifying. And we need to do absolutely everything we can to get the help to Ukrainians so that they can defend themselves, so they can defend their country. You know, they are heroes. We are watching Ukrainians stand up against the Russian military, and they have held Putin off. They've been able to do that. The NDP have always called for our Canadian military to have the tools that they need to do the job that they need to do. And we have seen, you know, Mr. Chong has alluded to this, that this was not just cuts under the Liberal government, that this has been, underfunding of our military has been something in place for subsequent governments. And at this moment in time, we need to make sure that there are the resources available to our men and women. But I also want to just caution as well that when we look at defense spending, I think all Canadians recognize that we also need to look at humanitarian spending. We also need to look at how we invest in peacekeeping, in diplomacy, in working multilaterally with our allies. You know, when we see that we are at the lowest level in decades in our international development and our official humanitarian assistance envelope, you know, it's pretty hard to raise up that defense budget without also looking at how we can make sure that there's help in place for people.
Okay, Rob Oliphant, quickly, I want to ask you about those refugees. Is Canada going to airlift them, send in some charter planes? Is there any talk about that to get people here, if indeed they want to come to Canada?
Just following up on what has been said, I do want to say that I think Heather is absolutely correct, that any increase in defense spending, which I agree with, needs to have a commensurate increase in diplomatic funding and humanitarian funding, because it needs to be Canada's place in the world. And that is part of what we're talking about in any kind of a refugee system, is making sure that we have the tools in place to help refugees and immigrants come to Canada. Over 10,000 are now here. That's not enough. Canadians want to make this a welcoming place. And the Minister Fraser has been very clear that the whole system is being put in gear to make sure that we are effective and responsible and bringing people to this country for safety. Of course, Germany is 2 countries away, so people will get there first. But we want to make sure that we have all the tools in place to bring a good and orderly immigrant and refugee population in this country, because we will be better for it. We do it for their sake. They are under threat. But we also do it for Canada's sake, because we'll be better as a country with more Ukrainian people living here.
So let me ask you this, Michael Chong. What should be the first thing we do in upgrading our military? Because everybody seems to agree here that our military needs some upgrading. What's the first thing? What is the most urgent thing?
Well, first off, we should purchase the F-35 jets. This decision has dragged on way too long. The CF-18s are at the end of their life. We also need to accelerate and fix the broken naval shipbuilding program. We need to get ships capable of defending our coastline, particularly in the Canadian Arctic, where we share a border region, the Arctic Ocean, with Russia, which considers the Arctic its most important region. We also need to get on with modernizing an aging early warning system run by NORAD. That system was built in 1985 before the advent of hypersonic missile technology, autonomous submarinal vehicles that the Russians are currently using in the Arctic, and so many other threats that have come up in recent years. We also need to start working more closely with Scandinavian and American allies in coordinating the defense of our democracies in the Arctic region. So those are some of the things that the government needs to get on immediately in order to defend not only our own security here at home, but those of our European allies.
Heather McPherson, I have 1 minute left, but there is an upcoming budget, and if we're calling for 2% of GDP, that's 10, 12, $14 billion a year in military spending. Would the NDP vote for that? And, you know, when you pick one, you have to sacrifice another program. Would the NDP vote for that kind of increase?
Well, Joyce, of course, we don't vote for one line within the budget. The budget is a bigger document than that. And like I said earlier,
Yes.
you know, I want to see investment in humanitarian. I want to see investment in Canada playing a bigger role in the world. So I can't answer that question. I did want to follow up on something that Rob said with regards to humanitarian and getting refugees out of Ukraine right now. You know, what we need to do is we need to send planes. We need to provide funds. These are women and children. These are seniors that are fleeing Ukraine, fleeing the violence right now. The best thing we can do right now to help those people get out of those dangerous situations and get them to Canada is to send a plane and provide funding once they get here. And visa-free travel.
And unfortunately, that's free travel, yes.
Visa-free.
And many have been calling for airlifting some of those refugees. Rob Oliphant, Michael Chunk, Heather McPherson, thanks for taking the time to talk to us, and I'm pretty sure we'll be talking about this again. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joyce. Thanks, everyone.